Good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Marriage. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. Glad to have you here tonight, and we're going to bring some more information that will hopefully make your marriages just a little bit better.
Yeah. So we're waiting on people to come in.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and share on our devices so that we are getting the word out as far as we can. So we ask for you to help us with that. Like, if you will, this video, share it. Um, Comment, give us comments back and forth. Even if you're watching it later, we still would love to have your comments added in so that we can get feedback from you. Let us know if it's helpful to you, if there's other things you want us to talk about. But just interact with us, or even tonight, for those of you that are joining in tonight, just go ahead and give us your comments so we can have a little bit of conversation going on. Let it go two ways. I will go ahead and say a little bit. Well, we're waiting on some folks to come in. I guess I'll be a little bit patient. Um, but we are talking about listening tonight. And just for those of you that are maybe watching this for the first time, we are Crown Kingdom Cultural Center. That's our church ministry that we're part of. And what we're sharing with you today is on behalf of our church ministry and on behalf of our pastors, Bishop Finace Bush Jr. and Denise Bush. So we represent the teaching that they're giving to us from the Word of God and the application of it to marriage. That's what we're here to illuminate for you and to give you some very practical ways to strengthen your marriage relationship. In case you didn't know it, marriages are always under attack. It's a spiritual connection, it's a spiritual bond, and there's always spiritual forces behind the scene against your marriage. So you have to make sure, you being the two of you that are in the marriage, make sure that you do your part to make your marriage strong.
Absolutely.
So tonight we're talking about active listening and sharpening your listening skills all around. So we have two resources that we're relying on tonight for the bulk of this information, and one is a article by Diane Grande, PhD, is from Psychology Today, and it's called Active Listening. And then we also have a resource from Lifeway that is also, I think it was a vlog. And so we're relying on those to help us to provide information for tonight. Hello, good evening, Alicia Mack. We see you come on in. We appreciate you coming in. We hope you enjoy the lesson today. And there's someone else whose face I see, but name I don't. So if you shout out to us and give us a hello, we will know who you are as well. So I will go ahead and read this first little. You want to start with the scripture?
Yeah. Tonight's lesson is based on the scripture from James 1:19. It says, "So then, my brethren, my beloved brethren, let every man be slow to speak, slow to wrath, for wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God." So basically, you need to listen way more than you speak.
Yeah, there's another version of that I wanted to, that was a little bit kind of more straight to the point, if that's okay. Is that all right with you if I read a different version?
I guess.
Well, sometimes different versions kind of give different insights. What version was that you read? King James?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounded a little King Jamesy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna read the NIV, the New International Version. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry."
Yeah, that is pretty.
Those are words to live by.
Right.
Quick to listen, and we don't think about that, being quick to listen.
No, we want to be quick to respond.
We want to be quick to speak.
Yeah.
But you should be slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So we're going to really look at how you can use the concept behind that scripture, the principle behind it, to make you a better listener and a better communicator within your marriage relationship. Because
Right.
anybody can make you mad. Who is?
It's your spouse.
We ain't even rehearsed that. It's your spouse.
It's your spouse. That's the first person that can get up under your skin the quickest. Is that person, because who knows you better at that point of your life than your spouse.
Yes.
So,
all right. So we got a couple more folks. Mandy Brantley is here. Francine is here. Francine Brown, which means Charles ain't too far away.
He's not too far.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna I'm gonna read this little bit from active listening from this article. It says active listening is a way of listening that involves full attention to what is being said for the primary purpose of understanding the speaker.
Primary purpose of understanding the speaker.
That's the primary purpose of listening. It is an important skill set for many different circumstances. And if we are not actively listening, we are likely to miss the real message. So I want, I wonder, how many of us have ever thought about not necessarily being a good listener. I think that's a common term, but actively listening, meaning that I'm not doing something else, like how you pay attention to something else. But you know what I'm saying? We're paying attention to the same thing as a camera,
Right.
But very often, if you're scrolling through your phone and somebody's talking to you, that's not active listening.
You hear them, but you're not listening.
Exactly. And that's totally different from giving your full attention. Because that's just part of it, is giving your full attention. That's not all of it. There's more to being an active listener than just giving full attention. So you want to talk a little bit about how?
Well, I just want to make this point. Being an active listener, it takes skill to do that.
It does.
Hearing is a natural occurrence. You're going to hear, your mind is going to take in stuff whether you want it to or not. But to actively listen to what the person is saying, that takes skill, that takes practice, especially if you're not used to doing it. So tonight we're going to give you some guidelines or some tips to help you become a better active listener, not a hearer.
Yeah, because hearing can be passive.
It is. It can be.
Yeah, because even, as we're talking now, I hear things in our house that are subtle, different levels, and they have different levels of importance. So listening really is passive most of the time.
Hearing is passive.
Hearing is passive. So if you're going to really listen, you have to be trying to understand. You're seeking understanding.
Right. And the first point we want to make about listening, being a good active listener, when you're talking to your spouse, listen without making judgments or taking a position on an issue. That means I'm an active. If me and Trina are having a discussion, and I still need to work on this, just put that disclaimer out there. And if she's talking to me, I have to work on listening to what she's saying. Because if TV's on, it's going to get my attention. If the dog runs up and try to lick my toes or something, he's going to get my attention. So in that case, we have to work on being an active listener and ignore everything else that's going on around you so you can hear and listen to what the person is saying. Not just hear them, but you got to listen to them.
Right, and that takes intentionality. And I will say, I've noticed maybe a few years back even that sometimes when I have started talking to you, that you would just turn the TV off altogether. And it does two things. It does make you have to focus, because that's your biggest distractor. Second biggest. Cell phone.
Okay. It's the TV. Okay. I can care less about the cell phone. But yeah.
Okay. So the TV is a big distraction. So if he turns the TV off, I know he has my full attention, as opposed to him trying to, look out the corner of his eye, and because that's what he used to be. He tried to look out the corner of his eye and got his face turned towards me, like I can't see his eyes over there, and his face this way. So we've grown past that point, but he got to where he would just click the TV completely off. And the other thing that it does, besides it makes me accountable that, okay, he's listening for real. So I need to make sure that what I'm saying, that I'm getting my point across, that I'm not just, thinking out loud or whatever,
Right.
that I'm actually being intentional about what I'm saying to you, because you've taken the time to eliminate your distractors, and I know I have your full attention.
Yep. So in that case, that's why we learn to listen for the other person's point without forming an opinion about what they're saying. Really, because if they're talking to you about something, it's something that they feel uh, that's important, and they need for you to hear it. Especially when you're dealing in a marriage relationship, because the other person, if they're gonna bring a point up, you need to listen to what they're saying. All right.
Yeah, and I'll say too is I think it's very common. It's kind of human nature, or maybe it's just our culture, that very often when someone is speaking to us, we may be formulating what we want to say in response, or we've heard the first one or two things they said and have formulated a judgment, and so now we just want to respond to that instead of hearing them out completely. And so that's really the first tip that we have for you for being for listening actively, and to sharpen that skill of listening, is to don't be don't be so quick to make a judgment. Right. Listen without making a judgment. Listen for the purpose of understanding what your spouse is saying and what is their point of view.
Right.
That's your first focus.
And the second focus is run along the lines of what you're saying. If I'm listening to completely listen to her complete thought, I gotta refrain from interrupting.
Right.
That's the second. That's point number 2. Refrain from interrupting the person's train of thought, because you could say something that completely derails where they were going, and now we into another issue. Because you've interrupted the thought or took the conversation another way. So learn to stay focused and stay is what we call stay in the pocket, and make sure that things are done that the other person needs to get out. Don't create another line of communication or another line of something that may cause an argument. Stay where you are. Keep focused on what they're trying to say to you, and stay there.
Yeah, allow them to get their thought out. And some people take longer to express their thought than others, but that's where you have to know your own spouse. And if you know that your spouse takes a while to say what they want to say, then you need to be prepared to accommodate them for that, and to be patient and don't interrupt them. Let them finish their thought and get it out. And one person may be a faster talker than the other.
Oh yeah. Because my thing is, as a coach, I was used to saying what I had to say, quickly get it out of there and get it out of my mouth or get it out of my thought pattern, and expect people to go with it, with what I said. But that didn't work in my marriage, because it took some explanation. It took some, because she's trying to understand everything that's going on with what I'm trying to say. But if she didn't understand, it was just like, what are you talking about? So it took, she had to, in our marriage, I had to learn how to fully explain the idea. Not that she didn't understand it, I just wasn't explaining it the way that she could understand it. So did that make sense?
Well, I understand what you're trying to say. I don't know if it went across clearly or not, but I think from my perspective, what happened was you would come home speaking to me as if you're speaking to other men, to men, and I'm clearly not a man, and I don't think that way. So when you're talking in short bursts of thoughts, the way athletes very often speak to each other and using a lot of phrases and terms and what is like analogies and idioms and stuff. I don't even know what was just said. You just spoke for 5-6 things came out your mouth, and I have no clue what you're trying to communicate to me. And then what will happen then is then I'm frustrated. Then he don't understand why I don't understand. So it was a long road to learn that I need more words, and that's what I would say to her. I need complete sentences. I need more. I don't know what you mean. You just said 2 words, and I don't get it. And you thinking it's a complete thought, but it's not conveyed to me that way. And so we had to, that's something we really had. And I still haven't gotten good with the short way of communicating. That I don't know. I guess because I spend all day trying to increase people's language expression. maybe that's why, because I live in that world.
Right. And this right here is growth. And that's another good point when it comes to being an active listener. Your culture plays a little bit into that.
Yeah.
How, not necessarily how you grew up, but the people that you're around and how you interact with them.
And how you grew up.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
grow
a
up.
lot, I think.
How you grew up and the people that you're around most of the day. And when you come in, you try to interject some of those things in your marriage, and that don't work all the time. I'm not saying it doesn't work all the time, but you got to know who you're talking to and what they understand and how they understand it. So your culture does play a part in your active listening. And if you know you come from two different cultures, your active listening can help your marriage become a lot more successful, because there's some delays, not delays, but some gaps in the understanding of each other.
Okay. That makes sense. And I know we're going slower than we want to, but I think one thing that we didn't know, something we had to discover, is that our upbringing and our homes had different culture. And I don't think we recognized that at first. I think we assumed that we had more in common than, we do have a lot in common. We always have. But there are quite a few differences in the way the communication looks in both of the homes that we grew up in. And I think we didn't recognize that for a long time. I think it took a while for us to realize that, we do communicate differently.
Mm-hmm.
Our home, from the homes where both of us came from, the communication looks different. And I don't think it took us a long time, I think. At least it took me a long time to figure that out. I don't know. What about you?
No, it didn't take me long. I knew the communication was different. From the way that I was raised and the way you were raised. Really? Just from being around your family, yeah. I mean, you can tell the difference.
Well, I mean, I can now. I just didn't realize it.
I can't say which one was better or worse. It's just what you grew up in and around the people. But you have to adjust to the person that you're with in order to make it work. That's what this type of stuff brings your attention to that.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that you just don't understand the person, but you got to learn how to understand the person that you're with and the way that they were raised and the way that and where they come from.
Mm-hmm. I don't think one is better than another.
Right.
And I think that's why it took me so long to figure it out. It's just different.
They're just different.
Yeah. Another thing that makes a person an active listener is to be aware of your body language. And that's something we do talk about from time to time when we're teaching these lessons is make eye contact, lean towards the speaker when you, I think it's important too, which this is that you're, I'm out of picture, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking with somebody, you have better attention if you're facing each other. Right. Now, I do notice, and I have to say, that sometimes men tend to communicate side by side.
Yeah, because we want to talk in each other's face. We're not doing that.
But see, that was brought to my attention today. I was talking to a dad about his child after therapy, and he did just what you do. He walked right up beside me and did this number here, and we was talking side to side. Mm-hmm. And if his wife is the one that I'm talking to, we are always face to face. And that just made me think of that today. I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of what we'll be talking about. But men tend to do more side to side communication. And we was talking for a while. He was just as content. He didn't have to look at me. He was just side to side. And so that's something that I learned several years ago, but more recent than past, is that men tend to be more comfortable with side to side body placement when communicating versus face to face. Women are just more naturally wanting to be face to face. And so, yeah.
Well, that's a good point. That's a great point. The only person I really want to look into the eyes of a person is my wife. Because if
Yeah,
I'm
I
talking
hardly
to a
ever see you
person
talking about face to face.
and I'm not going to eye gaze them. If I'm trying to get a point out, we can do it for a little while to get an important point out.
Yeah.
But then after we get our point out, we're not going to sit there and eye gaze like that anymore. We don't do that.
I ain't really thought about it.
Men do not eye gaze.
I guess so, but it just kind of made me chuckle inside because he did it just like you. He just stood right beside me and got comfortable. It's distance between you wasn't close to nothing. It was nothing inappropriate, but it just made me. I was like, oh, he did it just like you. And I am just reminded that that's very much what a lot of men do. Is they like to communicate side by side. So I think we as women need to be understanding of that and not too judgmental. Is that what you were about to say?
No, I'm just kind of a side note. If you get just from my experiences, if a guy is facing you and he's looking at you in your eyes while y'all are talking the whole time, the intention might not be the same.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that there's a level of, okay, I might be a little interested in you if I'm eye gazing you, trying to talk to you. That's just a little side note.
I had never thought about that, but that does make sense.
But if a man is respectful of you and respectful of your space, he's going to keep his distance. He's going to make sure you're comfortable with the distance that we are, and he's not going to do anything to make it seem uncomfortable for you. But if he's interested, he's going to eye gaze you. But we're going to move on. No, ma'am. No eye gaze. All right.
All right, let's keep it moving. A couple of other things you can do to be an active listener is to repeat what you have heard said for accuracy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we have to use all the time.
Yeah. All the time. Still, that's the number one thing we use, because I swear what I hear is not what's trying to be communicated with me. I know that now. So that's why I've learned to repeat what she said. And she'll tell me quick, no, that is not what I was trying to say to you.
That is not even close to what I said.
And see, that's how we get our understanding though.
Yeah.
So, it's like, no, that's not it. All right. So let me say it like this. That's not what I said. Okay. Oh, just repeat what you said then. So that's how we communicate in this active listening.
That's a skill we use. And we use that all the time. Because we do find that to be very helpful. Repeat back what you said. And another one too is to ask questions as needed when you don't understand what the speaker is trying to communicate.
Right.
So particularly if you're trying to understand the main point of what they just said to you, ask questions before you start giving your comments about it. Seek to understand first, then to be understood. So seek understanding. The purpose of listening actively is to seek for understanding.
You're absolutely right, Ms. Mack. Paraphrasing and summarizing is vital to active listening.
That's exactly right.
You got to have that.
And that's the next point. Give a short summary to indicate that what you have heard and understood is what was said. Yeah, that's exactly the next point. Use a short summary, which is what Alicia just said, paraphrase and summarize. So that shows that you understand and have heard and understand what was said. Okay. All right. So the next step we want to do, we've kind of pointed out how to be an active or some characteristics of how to be an active listener. But we're going to refer to this second article that we pulled from this vlog to talk about how to do what the Bible says, which is to be quick to listen and slow to speak. That doesn't come natural for most of us. So we're going to give you some help in that area.
Quick to listen and slow to speak. First thing you should do, we just talked about it, ask clarifying questions. You gotta ask the questions in order for it to be heard. You need to seek that understanding and make sure what is being said is communicated properly, so both of y'all can have the same understanding in what you're talking about. So when you leave that conversation, everybody know what was just said and understood.
Well, it slows you. Asking clarifying questions slows you down because instead of you figuring out what you're going to say next, you have to formulate. You got to stop and think to formulate a question to make sure that your comprehension is on point. And that makes you slower to speak rather than to give that knee-jerk response. You slow down and ask clarifying questions to make sure that you understand.
Just like Mommy just said, ask questions that needed, seek understanding before releasing your thoughts.
Absolutely, that's the bottom line of being. And she's a master of such. Slow to speak and quick to listen. Slow to speak and quick to listen. I definitely have seen her do that. I don't think I gained that skill from her, even though I've seen it done.
She's getting better though, Mommy.
Well, I appreciate the pat on the back.
Yes.
All right. What else can we do to be slow to speak and quick to listen?
Define the terms, even the common words out there. Know what each other's saying. That goes back to the culture. Know what each other's trying to say in a conversation. Because you can't you can put it out there, but the other person may not understand a thing that you're saying. And the typical answer that's where you're from may not be the typical answer that's going to come from you.
Yeah, it can be cultural.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter of being more detailed. And so, for example, something that comes up with us a lot is if he says he's going to do something, he'll say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna do that.
I
I'm
get
gonna do
around
that
to
soon."
it.
Yeah, and so
I get to it.
my question for that is, okay, so define soon for me. Is soon for you in 5 minutes? Does soon mean in 2 weeks? Does soon mean in an hour? Help me understand what you mean by soon so that I know what to expect. And I also have to be careful about even asking that question so that it doesn't come off as being sarcastic. So, because I'm pretty good at that. I'm trying to get away from that, but I have a skill. I don't know if it came from God, but if he says he's going to do something, I can easily say, okay, but when is that going to be? Three months from now? Because I'm still waiting on this, that, and the other. And so I've had to learn in order for, well, see, you might think it's today. Mandy was saying soon for me is today, but depending on what it is, that you might assume it's going to be today, but your spouse might be thinking soon as in the first weekend that I get a chance to address it. And so that's why defining that term can be helpful, and for me to learn. I know this might be helpful for you as well, Mandy. Knowing you, just to not be sarcastic about it, but to really look for a clarification for when is soon.
Well, in one of our trials and tribulations we were going through as a married couple, we went to the bishop and our first lady of our church, and we had a session. And this actually came up. When are you gonna do it? I tell her, I get around to it. Get around to it is could be a week, could be a month, could be next year. So with us dealing with that, she wanted things done when she wanted them done. I'm gonna do things in my own time whenever I want it to be. But that didn't work for us. So in that conversation, in that learning, the bishop kind of convinced me, Nick, y'all discuss a time, get it done within that time period. Set a goal of a time that you can get it done. That would keep her from badgering you about it, because that was my thing with the whole I get around to it. Don't badger me about it. I told you I was going to do it, but in her time, it's not done. It's 2 months later. What are you doing? So we had to come to some conclusion and agree that a timetable was best for us.
Well, the time frame needs to be agreed upon.
Right.
Because, it's no good if you tell me you get around to it and you're saying, well, I'll do it in 2 weeks. Okay, well, I might need it done sooner than that. So I might not agree to 2 weeks. And my objective is not to control you. The objective is for us to get on the same page. And so
Right.
If I let you know what I'm asking you to do, that there's a time limit on it that I would like for it to be done, And if you're able to meet that, then that's what we agree to. But it's got, everybody's intentions need to be checked.
Right.
It's not about having your way or winning, feeling like you've won to have it your way. It's about being in agreement and being reasonable and truly looking for peace. Yeah, sarcasm is not a peacemaker. That's a good statement. It is not. It's actually very divisive. Yeah. So, what other tips do we have?
Be comfortable with silence.
Oh, that's a tough one.
For who?
For me.
Okay.
That's easy for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but see okay, here's the thing about the silence. Be comfortable with silence. That's a good tip, and it makes you slow down. It's okay for you not to have an immediate response. It's okay for your spouse not to have an immediate response. You don't have to fill every space of silence with talking. Slow to speak and quick to listen. It's okay if there's a little bit of silence. But the thing that I think has been a hesitation for me is sometimes the silence lasts a little long.
It can.
So I think if we're both in agreement that I'm not going to rush you, I'm not going to force you to speak, I'm going to be patient, but you can't be off in la la land while I'm waiting on a response either. Is that fair?
Yeah. Are we trying to agree about this? I don't think we're there anymore.
I just want to clear. No, we had to grow from there.
Oh, okay.
Because you would just you probably sit there for 30 minutes and say nothing. And and what would I say to you?
That's all you got. That's all you got to say.
It's your turn. It takes conversation is two-way. We got to have both of us. So it got to a point, because sometimes if I'm silent waiting on him to respond, he gets in his head and then says nothing out loud. He's had a whole conversation in his head by himself. And so I'm like, can I get in on that conversation? You left me out. You left me hanging.
And most time that head conversation be done solved it, and they solved nothing. All you did is solve it with yourself, because she don't know a word you said in your head. Or if you're the female part of that, he don't understand anything that just went on in your head because it was done in silence.
You have to still communicate. You can't let the silence become a way of escaping the conversation.
Right.
So I think it helps for both of you to be cognizant of the fact that, okay, I'm going to give you space to think before you speak. I'm not going to rush you on that, but I am expecting some kind of a response because we're having a conversation here. And that's what we had to come to terms with.
Oh, man. So some feel that if they are silent long enough, the issue goes away. It does not. It does not go away. Actually, it may actually increase the situation because nothing is solved.
Right. And it makes it seem almost becomes, what's that term, stonewalling?
Yes.
Like you're just not going to, you just refuse to respond. All right. Mama said be slow to speak and quick to listen. It takes intentional practice. Absolutely. And I'll tell you too, it doesn't hurt. In fact, it helps that sometimes in that silence, if you're feeling like you need to say something, it's a good time for you to have a little prayer, just real quick. You and God, so that you're not so focused on the silence or so focused on what your spouse is thinking, but just, Lord, help us come to a place of agreement. And that also kind of calms your spirit and kind of get you so you're not so, quick to jump out there. You have to learn it's a godly principle for you to learn to be tempered.
Right.
And to not to be so quick to respond. Learn to temper yourself and to temper your desire to talk. It's okay to talk less. It's wise to talk less.
It was a quote in this paper from oh my gosh, what was it?
What quote are you thinking of?
Before you open your mouth and prove people a fool. What was that?
There's a reason you can't find it.
I love it.
I know what he's looking for. And this is a statement. Is it Emerson? Ralph Waldo Emerson?
Yes.
Yeah, that says it's better to let people to be silent and let people think you're a fool for being silent, as opposed to open your mouth and proving them correct.
That's great. That's a great quote. Oh, I love it. Yeah. But it's the truth. So, with that being said, you got any closing remarks?
Oh, that's it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we hope that this was helpful, because honestly, this lesson has potential to really make an impact on your relationship. If you learn how to be an active listener, learn how to slow down and don't be so quick to speak, but to listen for understanding first, that can have a tremendous impact on the effectiveness of your communication in your marriage. But it has to be intentional, and you have to communicate as a couple to know that you're working together on that. It's helpful for both of you to be on the same page, to know that, we're going to work to have better communication. And so we're going to be active listeners, seek to understand your spouse first, and then look to be understood. Because, people more likely to, more understanding when they feel that you've respected what they've had to say first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure do.
Yeah. So give your spouse that courtesy. I'm glad y'all enjoyed the lesson. We see your positive comments, and I hope you all will share the video. And we hope you put into practice what we've talked about tonight.
Yep. So with that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.